The notion that was put forward that PPS numbers, for example, would be used to register Facebook accounts is particularly worrying, because it means the government then has reached straight into what you're saying, how you're saying it. And anybody really would be concerned when we have somebody with the power and reach of the Facebook CEO sitting down with politicians and discussing how adults' privacy can be monitored at the very least, and perhaps even invaded. Because in other countries with even more repressive governments, we're now seeing that Mark Zuckerberg is willing to share their personal information with governments. And really, the internet was always about trying to liberate people from repressive regimes. We saw the impact that it had, for example, in the Arab Spring. And so countries like China have for a long time repressed their population. They don't have Google, they don't have Twitter, they have their own government sanctioned versions of it. And it seems to me that what Mark Zuckerberg is saying is that he's now big enough that he's willing to effectively pull the drawbridge up behind him, introduce the kind of regulations which prevent any kind of competition coming from below, so that he is in effect happy to go in league with government at this point and invade the privacy of all of his members. The idea of fake news or hate speech are basically just buzzwords being invented by PR companies to prevent people saying things that are uncomfortable, in particular for governments, but also for just the general media narrative. There is a general narrative around certain topics and issues. And we have what in effect secular blasphemy laws now. So we're looking at the potential of introducing secular blasphemy as a crime, where you will say something which will offend a group in society, and as a result of that, you could potentially end up in prison. James Damore exposed the Google bias. We also had in Ireland recently, we had Paddy Manning, who was banned by Twitter for an ironic joke. He was being ironic about racists, and in the end he gets banned. And it was really very obvious that this was a move against a very high profile conservative Irish social media user. But Facebook itself has also been guilty and has admitted it, that their staff are, as he calls them, left liberals, and their genuine or their general outlook would be that, and they tend to ban and restrict speech for American conservatives, whether they be politicians or even activists. So there's definitely a problem in social media insofar as there's a political bias there which is admitted. Any restriction on free speech in Ireland is absolutely unwarranted. We have very robust defamation laws, and we have criminal laws against incitement to violence. And so that's really all we need. We don't need a new law of causing offence.